What cheer, y'all? Welcome back to Reddit the Wire. Well, I hope our intro got you in the spirit of Royal Ascot Week, which runs Tuesday through Saturday from Ascot Racecourse, where the King will be in attendance and has horses running, which is always kind of a fun part of it. There are 6 or 7 stakes races every day. I'm going to try to every single day of the meet just pick one or two that I consider to be the best betting races or the best races on the card. I'd like to give you more, but I just don't have the time, and I hope you understand. But for those of you who haven't seen Royal Ascot before, it is usually on Peacock or NBC. Um, and it's like I said, it's Tuesday through Saturday. It usually starts about 9:30 in the morning, and goes to about maybe 1 or 2 in the afternoon. They do take a fair amount of time between the races, but it's an awful fun day. And if you like horse racing, it's really it's a bit off the beaten path from what we used to in American racing, and it's pretty cool. And I just love European racing. So for those of you who enjoy it, it's a treat for the whole week. And for those of you who haven't tried it, please give it a try. I think you'll like it. We're going to talk today about 2 stakes races that are traditional at Royal Ascot, usually 2 of the better races. The first being the Queen Anne Stakes. It's a Group 1 first race on the card, and it's run at a mile on the turf, obviously, but it is a straightaway. And for those of you who haven't watched European racing before, mile races are generally run on a straight ahead track, no turns, and it's a you know, it has a different feel than certainly our mile races, where we have 1 or 2 turns, and it's a little different animal. It usually gets really it really gets exciting about the last like quarter mile, but it's a lot of fun to watch. So anyway, it's for 4-year-olds and up. There is an added distinction with these races as well for the males. Some of them are colts only, and and then there are races for colts and geldings, and this is one that's unrestricted. Fillies can even run in this race, as they do quite often in Europe. But the St. James Palace, for instance, is colts only because it's a race that has breeding repercussions. So that's kind of the way they do it. So don't be surprised when you see that type of restriction for a particular race. You take a look. You got an 11-horse field, and it's a pretty good one. A lot of these horses ran in the St. James Palace last year, and that's the 3-year-old version of this that we're going to talk about in a second. You'll note Carl Spackler is running in this race, who we know from Chad Brown's barn in the States, and who was a very effective miler. He is, I think just to talk about him quickly, I'm not going to use him, and the main reason is that I think they're just asking a lot out of this horse. He was just down in Australia. Now he's moving to England, and hopefully he comes back to the States, and that's the only reason I am reluctant to use him. I think he probably stacks up pretty well amongst this group. 20 to 1 is certainly a little enticing, but I'm just I'm just a little reticent to use American horses at Royal Ascot. Wesley Ward brings a lot of 2-year-olds every year, and they come in with a lot of pub, and he's had a couple winners, but most of the time they bomb out. Most notably, like American Rascal a couple years ago, who was up the track. And anyway, let's talk about the ones we want to use. I'm going to use Rosalian for the win. He won the St. James Palace last year. He was in the 2,000 guineas. He was likely the favorite, but he had needed a race, whereas Notable Speech did not, and that kind of made the difference a little bit. In the rematch in the St. James Palace, Rosalian got the better of him, and he's just carried on as being an excellent miler, and he's probably the best miler in Europe right now for sure. And I think with his last race, there were quite a few who were in that one that are in this one. Notable Speech, Lead Artist, Dancing Gemini were all in that race, and I just think he needed a race. He ran fine. He ran third, but he was a little further back than he perhaps normally would be. And he just had to look like a horse who needed his race. He certainly did not run his best, and I'll expect we're going to get this here. He likes Ascot, won at it before, and I think he's a deserving favorite. And 5-2 is an excellent price, so I'll take Rosalian to win. Now, to use some other horses, Diego Velasquez, I would never exclude a Aidan O'Brien, Ryan Moore horse. Never. Because at Royal Ascot, they surprise more often than not. It just doesn't seem to matter when you think they're not, they don't look up to par. They always seem to find their way. And Diego Velasquez was, if you recall, they tried to get him to run in the States a couple of times last year, and he scratched out both times. Came back to Europe, continued on with his winning ways, and finished the year pretty strongly. The thing about him, though, is it's hard to think about him as a win candidate because of the way he runs. It's not as electric as Rosalian. He's got more of that grinder type of kick, and but at a good price, 15-1. I think he's certainly one you want to include in the mix. I just kind of like him a little more for under. Same thing with Docklands. He's a horse for the course. He loves Royal Ascot. I remember last year in particular. There were a few pundits who said, think about Docklands. You want to use him. You want to use him. Well, I kept looking at his form, and I just didn't see it. But I'll tell you what, this horse, you really look at his running lines. It doesn't matter what kind of form he's in. When he comes to Royal Ascot, he runs a good race. So he's definitely a horse for the course. And at 20-1, I'm absolutely going to use him. Lead Artist won that prep race for this last time that had most of the contenders here. And he's just in really good form for Jonathan Thady Gosden, another excellent trainer that you don't want to overlook. And he drew off with authority in that race. He looks like he's in really good form. I just like Rosalian a little better, both sides being equal. Now that Rosalian's got a race under him, I think the cream rises to the top there. But Lead Artist is certainly one I would use. Now, I'll make a note about notable speech. Certainly, he made his mark winning the 2,000 guineas last year. But here's the thing. He really didn't finish the year off terribly well, and that includes the Breeders' Cup, where he was a big-time disappointment. Starting this year, you couple what he did at the end of last year with what he did in that prep race to start the year, and he was at the back, and he really just couldn't seem to get it in gear, and he had the look of a horse that probably now wants more ground. And I think he's probably graduated out of the mileage. It's a thing to know about in England, in Europe in particular. With 2-year-olds, they run sprints, as ours do. And the end of the year, they run a mile. That's about as far as they'll go. When they start at 3 years old, they move up to a mile, and then it's to the Derby at 1.5 miles, and then 1 3/4 miles with the Saint Leger. But that's where they really start to figure out where they're going to put them and what distance makes sense for them. So I think maybe notable speech now at 4 has sort of migrated into a horse who probably wants a little more ground. And so that would, if he's at the back in this race, I think that's going to have him lacking in the stretch. And at 5-1, I think he's a little bit of an underlay. So I'd rather try to get some value with Diego Velasquez and Docklands. But Rosalian, the pick in the Queen Anne Stakes. So we'll move on to the 3-year-old counterpart, and that's the St. James Palace. And again, this is a race that's always a lot of fun and always has a lot of really cool horses in it. It's another mile straight away, 3-year-old colts only. No geldings, no fillies, just colts. So the breeding implications are pretty obvious here. Small field, but a really good one. Field of Gold is the 4-5 favorite. I'm going to try to beat, and there's only one reason I'm doing it. In the 2,000 guineas, ruling court got the better of him, and the main reason was that Field of Gold was just too far back to factor in the race. Now, since that race, in his last one in particular, they had him more forwardly engaged, and he was able to draw off and win the race. So perhaps they've corrected that problem that held him back from winning the 2,000 guineas. He's a really nice horse. I'm going to try to beat him only for the reason that if he gets stuck back there again, some others may tactically have an advantage. And I like Henri Matisse. We saw him in the Breeders' Cup Turf, Juvenile Turf last year. Uh, this horse has carried a lot of weight. He's running some good classes. And again, Aiden O'Brien, Ryan Moore, I never want to overlook them. And I think he maybe is flying under the radar because everyone's anticipating a Field of Gold and Ruling Court rematch from the 2000 Guineas, where Ruling Court got the better of him. I think Henri Matisse is equally as good as either of them, and he offers a little bit of a price. So maybe those two cancel each other out. Henri Matisse becomes the beneficiary. I think tactically he'll be more forwardly placed. So he's one that I'm going to take in the St. James Palace. Talked about Field of Gold. Ruling Court, I don't have any problem with him. I just think the 2000 Guineas struck me as the kind of race that he sort of won because Field of Gold was a little too far back. So it was a tactical victory as opposed to a physical superiority. And he's a nice horse, but he's a little lightly raced, and I just get the feeling that maybe that was the best he could do. And now stepping up against a better field, which this certainly is, especially when you add in Henri Matisse, at 5-2, I really don't want him here, so I'm going to try to beat him. Rashabar is one that is good at Ascot. He won a 2-year-old race last year. I believe it was the Coventry on the first day at 80-1. And he's continued onward in good form. Not great. He's probably a cut below, but he's coming into this race third off the layoff. And on a track that he likes. And again, this is another straightaway, so I think he's got every opportunity to factor in this race. And at 20-1, I love the price. So we're going to go with Henri Matisse to take the St. James Palace in what should be a really fun race to watch. So I hope our analysis helps you with your own wagering strategy. I wish you the best of luck as always. And certainly if you do like content like this, please like and subscribe. Again, thanks so much to all of you who have grown our community throughout the Triple Crown Trail. And we're looking forward to more growth the second half of the year with Saratoga, Del Mar, the Breeders' Cup, amongst others. But we'll have coverage for all of them. We're going to do the Ohio Derby this weekend, which looks to be a pretty interesting race. We got some old friends from the Derby Trail who will be in that one, and we'll have probably do a sequence from Thistledown as well as the full card and selections and all of that. So be on the lookout for more content there. So that's it from here. I'll talk to you soon, and until then, be well.